And we have to really have that conversation and that education of our buyers in order for us to really make sure that they will actually transact in the next few months. So it's going to be tough.
Are you actively in front of them, talking to them so that they, through all of this, still see you as their realtor going forward? Maybe not now, but eventually one of them may be buying or selling. And if they forget that you're around, if you're not interacting with them on a regular basis, when that time comes, you're forgotten.
You want to go to who's on Facebook? Maybe people that are older. Who's on Instagram? Maybe more millennials. Who's on TikTok? Kids.
The age brackets are grabbing, right? But kids have parents.
And they
I know the realtor.
Exactly.
Live from New York. Welcome to the Selling Empire Podcast. Your source for the latest real estate tips, tricks, and insights from the top producers in the industry. Whether you are new to real estate or a seasoned agent, don't miss your chance to learn from guests who have broken the mold and achieved massive success. Get ready to level up your game. Let's get started.
And I think with that said, really appreciate you stopping by the office today.
It's my office, kind of.
Hopefully we'll have you more here more often. But, we know you. But for those that are listening and watching on YouTube or wherever else this is being hosted, who the heck are you?
So my name is John Buoninfante. I'm from the Bronx my whole life. And became a real estate agent in Castle Hill in the Bronx at 2000. And in 2003, I became a broker owner on Westchester Square in the Bronx. And then I got out of the industry, during the crash. Right. And I moved into a family business where, my father was a jeweler and I became a jeweler. And, old school Italian dads don't really work well with their sons. So I had to leave in about 2016. And then I went to Westchester and White Plains. Initially, I joined Keller Williams. And I had to learn real estate all over. I never used the MLS when I was in the Bronx. There was no co-broking. Wasn't we doing anything bad. That was just the way Bronx realtors were at the time when I was a broker. So it was kind of like being a new agent when I came back to real estate in 2016, 2017.
Yeah, so you were out for, 8 years? You said you left in 2008?
Yeah, it was a pretty critical 8 years. Transformative.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Everything changed at that time.
Yeah. What happened? New technology.
New laws. So, what got you, initially in 2000 to say, hey, I want to be in real estate? What was that?
Well, I was really young. I graduated college from Iona. And I had a degree in finance, and I knew I wanted to do something financial. At the time when I was young, I was 22, I actually was a borderline professional musician, and I used to play in the city a lot.
Nice.
And so I didn't necessarily want to have a 9-to-5 job because I did want to get signed.
I need the dream.
Yeah, I was going for the dream.
So you were a singing realtor, is everyone here?
No, well, I didn't sing about real estate. I was a realtor who had a band. And that was it. And then eventually I stopped playing and I took my business seriously. And that's when I became more motivated and more successful in it. And then I said, hey, I want to open up my own office. So I opened up my own office. I had a couple of agents under me. And it was a really good thing at a young age, to have a business in my 20s. And so I loved it.
Awesome. Yes. So how was that for you starting out in those early years in terms of, you were brand new to it. You were a musician, sort of, doing this on the side to, pay some bills and whatnot right out of college. How were those first years just getting started in the business?
Well, I guess it was, I would say maybe challenging, but I would make tons of phone calls. I was really good at lead generating from the onset. My broker led by example. I mean, he made a big company, made a lot of money, and he used to work in ERA. And he would just pound the phones. So when we would have a cold directory book. It was a book.
Wow. What? You did say it was the 2000s.
Different time.
Yeah, we would call from books. And so we have a book. And we
was the Cole?
Cole, C-O-L-E. Yeah, it was a cold directory book.
She was telling me about it. One of our new agents, that not so new too. So she was telling me that about the Cole book. I'm like, what is this?
It was massive. It was that thick of every number in the Bronx. So, but I used to do it. I used to call those things, and I would drive around the Bronx and just ask people, anybody selling a house here. And that's how I got my business. And then again, obviously I didn't know the term sphere of influence, but that's naturally what happened is people I knew, and then I grew my business that way. People who knew me, trust me, and liked me gave me business.
That's awesome. So tell us about that first client. Do you remember it? I'm sure we all remember that first one.
I remember my first deal was a rental. and I was just so happy to have like $800 and make money.
How times change.
Yeah, that first paycheck is amazing. When you first get something out of working for a while.
Yeah. The first one was, I think that was my most memorable because it was my first paycheck.
You remember the first one.
Yeah, so I remember it vividly. As my transactions, got bigger, and of course my broker got involved and helped me out a lot and stuff like that. But in the beginning, I just remember that first working for like 6 months with no money.
Yeah.
You get your first check.
Yeah.
I'm really a licensed realtor. It really works.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, I think Ryan Serhat, when he was at the conference, he talked about how he's always talking about how his first one was a rental too, and how he just got lucky, he says, and made all that money down the line. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of that, we'll continue your story in just a second, but just to give the listeners, viewers, sort of view of you and today, like what does business look like today for you?
Business is primarily, I have a lot of different sources of business. So one source of business is my database, which is the people who really know me, like me, and trust me. And I really don't have to do much to get business because it's just really relational. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, I enjoy people. I enjoy people in my church, things like that. So that's how I get that type of business. But I'm also pretty aggressive where I prospect for sellers, aggressively. And so I have that business. And now we have a new way of doing business and connecting, which is on social media. And all of us are now pivoting our business to exposing our business. Yeah. So that's where my pivot has been lately, is to really brand myself on social media and let people know about my business online.
Yeah. So it sort of goes back to before you were making the calls, driving around. You're still, in a way, doing all of that, just taking it on a different platform online. Yeah. But it's still about chasing that lead, chasing that client, wherever they may be. Yeah. So I think, that's a big thing, especially going into this new, market into 2023, as an example. A lot of agents that join, I feel, we talked about this a lot, in the last 2 years, had it easy. Real easy. Yeah. But I really do think that in the next few months, in the next year, we'll see a lot of those newer agents just, exit the market because they're not used to needing to do all the actual activity that is required to generate business. Making those calls, making your social media videos, doing whatever needs to be done to actually get in front of people. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
Yeah, and we were just talking about in our team meeting earlier. We're gonna have maybe a bigger pool of people, but from there we have to work a lot harder to create a transaction from that 100. Before we had that 10% rule. Yeah. I don't know that 10% rule is gonna apply anymore, right? So you're gonna have 100 people. Before, out of those 100 people, you might get in touch with 10, and then out of that 10, you might sell one, right? Yeah. Now it's probably gonna be a lot lower than that. So we need to have more of that interaction, trying to reach out to them after we get them into our database so that we can finally get one of those transactions, right? So it's going to be a lot harder. Interest rates not as low as they used to be. Yeah. So not everybody's a buyer anymore. And we have to really have that conversation and that education of our buyers in order for us to really make sure that they will actually transact in the next few months. So it's going to be tough. And I don't think a lot of those newer agents are ready to have those type of conversations and to create that type of relational transaction that you need. Versus before, anybody could click on Zillow, I want to go see the house, and they put an offer.
Yeah, it was like being a waiter.
Yeah, pretty much. That was opening doors. That's it. You're in. Yeah,
no, definitely. I think a lot of the realtors have left. I think just what's going on the past 2 months from 3 to 7, even though it dropped a point this past month, still, it's a totally different world. And I made the decision to but you really got to keep your business going, double down on your activities. We're just talking about conversion. You gotta do that. But the reality is for us that are going to stay in it, we're going to get better habits that when everything comes back to normal, we'll be much more successful.
No, for sure.
So speak on that. What do you see, for those of us that are staying in the market, that are, again, doubling down on what we know and what we do? What do you see, perhaps from your viewpoint, the top 3 challenges or habits that we should be working on into this year? What are you focusing on that you think will, help you get through this?
Well, I think it's about making sure your number one source of business is coming from your database. And then we are in a business now of real estate that marketing is so important. Making videos is so important. Adding value to people is so important. So we're going to have to be really deliberate about adjusting and learning a lot of new stuff. And we're really going to have to learn and stretch ourselves to be open-minded to new ways of doing business. So I would say you got to still have that generation piece, that relational piece, but people are on social media because it's a social platform. And so we are going to have to deliver our message there to add value to the people who do know us, know, like, and trust us. So it's also, social media for me is not just a place to generate new business. It's a place for the people who know me to say, hey, I'm still a realtor, and this is how I could add value to you, even if you're not giving me a transaction that's irrelevant.
No, for sure. And I think that database, that sphere is crucial. We actually spent the last month just working on that ourselves and our team, just really pounding the, hey, you don't have a lead generating problem. You have a lead maintenance problem in terms of our agents. We know a lot of people. We have a big network. Are you actively in front of them, talking to them, so that they, through all of this, still see you as their realtor going forward? Maybe not now, but eventually one of them may be buying or selling. And if they forget that you're around, if you're not interacting with them on a regular basis, when that time comes, you're forgotten.
They could just call it Zillow.
Because they're in Zillow anyway, right? All realtors hate Zillow and these big platforms, but at the end of the day, that's where buyers are. They're always searching in Zillow or Realtor.com, and I'll have my clients send me Realtor links all the time. I'm like, do I get mad about it? Sometimes, but you should be looking at my website, not Zillow. But at the end of the day, as soon as they Google something, Zillow is the first thing that pops up, right? So we kind of have to adjust and work around it. They're going to be there anyway. If they're clicking on that, it's a shame on you if you're allowing your clients to go that route, right? Because to your point, we should be on top of their mind. We should be reaching out weekly or more often, depending on where they are in the transaction. And for those that are in that nurture state, we should be on social media, constantly reminding them, like, hey, we're still, even though it's a tough market, we're still out here. We're still transacting, we're still helping out clients and showing that and adding the value so that they can see that, you know what, even though it's tough, they're still working this out. Let me reach out to them and, see what happens.
But I think to your point, though, you made an excellent example there, and that you mentioned your clients are sending you realtor links, but they're sending it to you.
Right.
So that's the point.
Just happened today.
Regardless of where they're looking, because you're top of mind, they'll see something online or on the street somewhere, they'll call you because they think of you. Right. And that's going to be key going forward. You don't want them to click on that contact me now on Realtor or on Zillow. You want them to see it, but then call you. And that's, being on top of mind, working at database, and really just owning that headspace in terms of, hey, I am your realtor going forward. That's going to make all the difference.
Yeah, definitely.
So just going back to your story in terms of, you said you took a break in 2008, then you came back in 2016. How was that introduction? You said you had to relearn things all over again. How did you pick things up?
It was pretty much being a new agent, because some things were inherent in me, which was, the ability to generate leads. Because even though I left real estate, I sold jewelry, I was a diamond dealer. So I've always been a salesman for 20 years. That's just my DNA. But to come back into the real estate market in Westchester, I never worked with an MLS. I never did a deal with another agent. So those dynamics, which is like everyday stuff, was brand new. The whole concept of it, So everything was brand new. Technology, like Felix said earlier, using CRMs and things like that. I didn't have CRMs in 2003. So coming back, you had to learn technology. You had to use the MLS. I had to, again, call cold until I grew my database. So I was doing a lot of cold calling. At that time in 2016, I'd be calling expired listings. I wasn't a big fan of open houses, but you do what you got to do early on. Yeah. So you do open houses. And
we're big fans of open houses, not for ourselves but our team members too. I've gotten very good deals out of open houses.
I've gotten like 5 deals from one person walking into an open house. They become a seller, buyer, referral. So it's a great source of income. Open really houses, and I've learned to like it more because I know the outcome.
Right.
Your first open house was weird.
No,
and that was I never did an open house in the Bronx. So when I was coming back, it's one of those things. It's like, really, what's an open house? Like I heard of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I was doing. So open houses were new, CRMs were new, co-broking was new, using an MLS was new. Everything was new.
You were a new agent.
Yeah, and I was working for a company. That was new too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, you were on your own.
Yeah, I would get a check and deposit it. It said John Buoninfante. It didn't say John Buoninfante anymore.
No. Yeah.
And the amount was different.
Well, the original check once you got back is different, right?
Yeah, it's different.
No, and I mean, in terms of that, you came in, started making all those calls, you started to regrow your network and your database. What would you say, looking back at it now, what was your superpower in terms of getting to where you are today?
Early on, it's just being fierce, just going at it cold. Like I had no scripts. People in my office make fun of me, and they would say, I would call them like, "You want to sell a house?" And they'd be like, "No," and I would say, "Why not?" I wasn't trained yet, but one of my fears was I was determined, and I knew that this is what I had to do for me, for my family, because I don't want to have a job. Even though it was my father's dynamic, I still don't want a boss. So I never was going to think about getting a job. So I knew I would never want a job, and so you just don't have a choice. Yeah. Like, even if the market shifts, if you're going to stay in it, you don't have a choice but to pivot and work hard. So for me, my superpower was being on the phones, learning scripts. I did get script partners, and I learned that stuff, that type of stuff until my next superpower, I would say, is I'm a relational person. Mm-hmm. So as you develop friendships, deep friendships, genuine friendships, and they find that you're a realtor, that was the pivot from cold to referral-based business.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think one thing I want to highlight is that you said in the beginning you didn't have scripts. I think that's such a limiting belief in terms of new agents getting first started. Mm-hmm. They believe that they need to have the perfect script, the perfect tool, the perfect everything to make calls. You were just calling people saying, "Hey,
my agents would walk by laughing. Like, why not?" I didn't even sound right, but you got to jump in to do it.
Exactly.
That's how real estate is.
No, exactly. And I think we're saying just anything in general. It's just take action. If you never take action, if you're just prepping, you'll never get past that initial fear. Mm-hmm. But once you jump in, it's like that first, shock when you jump into a cold pool. Yeah. It's, it's a little scary at first, but
eventually you get used to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the taking action piece is crucial in anything that you do, especially when you're first starting out, because that is what's going to set the tone going forward.
Yeah.
And if you were fierce, so that carried through and it led you to where you were then getting not agents, but like just ongoing referral business. If you were timid from the beginning, you would still be timid now because, it just carries forward.
Yeah. And definitely, that was my mantra where it was like, I had to fail forward. Mm-hmm. I had to make mistakes. I never got where I was until you learn the mistakes I made, not the things that we're good at. So I learned so much by all my mistakes. Like, for instance, making those funny cold calls when they weren't working made me realize I need to learn a script. Yeah. But you wouldn't realize that until you're saying, like, stupid stuff on the phone. Yeah. And people cursing you out.
Yeah. You know what? I think the stupid stuff, they help.
They help. And made me realize what I need. Yeah.
And now, because you did that, the next one, it's not as scary. It's easier.
No, because... Yeah, exactly. Because you know that eventually you can get good at it if you stay in it.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So what are you... we kind of talked about where you were, where you kind of are now, and how that transition. But what's next for you? What are you working on now? What are you excited for in the next year or two?
Oh, wow. It's a completely different model. Coming to Real is a significant difference because I was at my Tom Ferry event, and I did start social media. last year I asked for, deliberately, after I was with other coaching companies, I joined Tom Ferry and I said, I want a social media coach. Because I really didn't, I didn't know nothing about it. I'm 45. I see people 10 years younger than me doing it. And so I needed a coach. And I started getting exposure from my clients. So now it's just up in the level of, being on different platforms and, again, not letting go of that, calling my database, right. Calling the people I know. It's got to have both, but to add that major marketing-based type of business. Right. I'm moving forward from a lead gen business to a marketing-based business where I'm helping out people who don't necessarily know me but want to work with me because of the marketing I've done.
Yeah, of course. Oh, that's awesome. And where do you kind of see that going in the next kind of year or two? Are you going to be layering anything else on top of that? Because right now you say your current business is kind of your referrals and your, although we can't cold call now, but kind of that old cold calling style. Now you're layering in some of the social media. Once you say you've been doing it for about a year now.
Yeah.
So what's next after that? How are you building on?
Well, so what me and my coach have discussed is, okay, let's take one platform. Right. And then let's take another platform and start to kind of recycle it, duplicate the content so it could be on two platforms. So what I'm doing is I'm learning each platform. Okay. So right now it's Instagram. Pretty much it's easy to recycle that to Facebook and kind of easier to recycle that to TikTok. Right. Then there's YouTube. But I do feel like if I'm going to LinkedIn, it's different because I want people to see the business side. Right. So not only am I using content, you got to learn the platform to know what users are going to get value.
Different type of activities that you can do.
Yeah, so it's about jumping to platform to platform to platform, which I'm going for what Grant Cardone would call omnipresence. Okay. It was where everybody sees you everywhere and marketing on every platform to brand myself as a realtor.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's why I see myself going towards, and to learn things that we were talking about earlier. You were talking about stuff I didn't know, with the blogs and vlogs. Right. And so podcasts, I haven't done anything like that yet. So it's just always bringing in new stuff, always learning new stuff and just learning from others.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to highlight is, for people that are thinking of the same, right, that may be feeling a bit overwhelmed with, there's so many platforms out there, so many things. You hit on it. It's recycle in terms of if you're taking videos, if you're doing something, that same piece of content can be recycled and cut up in so many ways so that you can repost that across. Yeah. If you make such a interview like this, we're recording this on video and audio. We can take this audio, put it on a podcast. We can take this video, put it on YouTube. We can cut up this YouTube videos and make YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, TikToks, whatever it means. You can take one piece of content and chop it up in such a way that it can provide that omnipresence, omni-platform experience for your clients. Because at the end of the day, you want to be where your client is at. Yeah. If somebody's on YouTube, you want to be on YouTube. But if they prefer Twitter, Instagram, you want to be there too. And then, have that all show sort of one image of you portrayed in such a way that will entice them to give you a call. Yeah, definitely. It's exactly right. You want to go to who's on Facebook, maybe people a little older. Who's on Instagram, maybe more millennials. Who's on TikTok? Kids. The age bracket starts grabbing, right? Yeah. But kids have parents. And they grow up. I know the realtor. Exactly. And they grow up eventually, get them young. Right. A lot of people, a few years ago, probably when you got back into the business, everybody was scared to do business with millennials. Now they're the men buyers. Yeah, right? You got to do business with millennials. Right? Now you got to talk about the next generation. That's going to be a tough one, right? But that's the way we're going. The TikTok people. Who's next? Who knows? This could be the metaverse. Yeah. And a point of all of that is that for any of this, it takes time, right? So we're talking about, putting out all this content. Your first, few 30, 50 pieces of content, it's going to flop. It won't do great. But you're building that library. You're building that credibility that over time, people will just get used to seeing you over and over again. And before you know it, months down the line, that's when it sort of, pays dividends. Yeah. So it's, if you go back to, I think, any of our accounts and you look at our first post when we, joined whatever platform we're on and posted our first, sold picture or anything like that. It's not that great.
Yeah, no, of
but
course.
you see the evolution, and that's what people are watching, not for the content. I think they're watching for your story.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see your story. They want to relate to you, and they want to feel part of. Hey, this is John. I've seen him grow over the last few years. Let's go buy a house with John.
Exactly.
Because they come to trust you. They know you. They feel like, you're part of their sphere.
Yeah.
And that you're injecting yourself or injecting yourself into that, sort of a person's life.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that social media, you don't have to sound salesy.
Mm-hmm.
You just, giving people value. And again, it's an attraction base. So it's people who want to work with you instead of, going from the cold aspect, which is where I've always gone because I'm a type A guy. But that doesn't pay dividends long term. Yeah.
So I guess if you could speak a little more about that piece that you just mentioned in terms of giving people value, because, growing up, watching TV, commercials everywhere, hate commercials. And that's why you would always run to the kitchen to get something to eat while the commercials are playing, just not watching and come back to the actual show. Yeah. What's your content strategy in terms of adding value to people? What are you trying to focus on?
Well, I'm very new to YouTube, so it's easier to answer that question on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So on Instagram, there's a couple of different ways. Something like this would just be raw. Like I would put this on and this adds value to people. A lot of what I do though is reels that are, like the sound stuff and the clip syncing or stuff like that. And it's like 15 seconds. It looks entertaining, and I like it because it can entertain someone if they're on the phone at 11 o'clock at night. But if they want to learn something, I'll always put something that says read caption below. Mm-hmm. And whatever the caption says, what they open it up is really good real estate content and advice. What's going on in the real estate market? Is it safe to buy a house at 6%? What's the difference? So my content may appear less serious, which is what I'm looking for, because if I was on the phone at 11 o'clock at night, I don't want to hear a realtor, right? So you want something funny, 15 seconds. If I choose to read the caption, and then you learn. Yeah. And so that's kind of been my strategy and also to for them to know who John Buoninfante is. Yeah. It's not all every day a house. I love food. I post how to cook, all my food and my cats and the things I like. I mean, the one boundary is not my kids. I don't post my kids. People do, that's fine. Yeah. But that's the one boundary.
He exploits his kids all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it does work.
They're pretty cute. So,
they're definitely cuter than you.
Everybody got it. No, but I think especially we went to the One Real event. You couldn't go this year, but there was this one gentleman. I'll give him a shout out, Mr. Social on Instagram. Follow him; he's amazing. And what he presented on the stage really resonated with me in terms of he talks about who he is. He shows his life, right? He really connects with people in the way social media should be used to be social, to connect with people. Mm-hmm. So yes, he posts about real estate, but he's posted it in a way that makes you see him not as a realtor, but as a person that just happens to sell real estate. Yeah. And naturally you want to support him in his business, right? Yeah. And again, to your point of not being salesy, that's a key thing that, I think personally, I lack on a bit in my social media. I do try to be funny, but I think I need to be a little more personal. Yeah. That I think, any good agents out there will be doing in the future as, sort of intertwining that realtor education, funny personalness, to build the connections. And again, just going back to that connection with the person and your client that you're working with.
He definitely made a big impact. The crowd loved him too. I think he was the one from Canada, right?
Yeah. Awesome. So I know we're running out on time here. So I just wanted to jump into a few more questions with you. Again, you're a really successful person here in Westchester. If you guys don't know John, follow him online.
Thank you.
And definitely, reach out to him. But if you had to start all over again, right? Mm-hmm. You took a break, came back 8 years later. What would you do differently today?
That's a great question. I think I definitely would jump right into social media. But I would go cold. I think I always would. My gut instinct would be like, where are leads and who can I call, and speak out to them as I develop a database of relational people and grow them into a database. And I would be on in all social platforms immediately. So if that's what I would have to do, is If I started over, I would immediately put myself on social platforms. I would call, I would do open houses, I would do all the events that any way I could get in front of people in a way that they would know me, like me, and trust me and want to do business. So you got to hit it hard right away.
Yeah.
It's the hardest time definitely to make money in this business is your first 6 months. And if you take a break, you start over.
Yeah.
For sure. So, we talked about a little earlier how it's going to be a little tough for agents right now going into the new market. So for those agents that are feeling stuck, especially now with the higher interest rate, what advice would you give?
I would give them advice that you got to look at this as a blessing and not a curse, because if they can make it in this market, they're going to flourish when everything gets back to normal. So they really need to decide what type of agent they're going to be. Are they going to stay? Because if they're going to try to do what they did 2 years ago, business is not going to come to them. Definitely. Not at all. So they're going to be forced to either work hard, learn the industry, do what we've done before, 2019 and back, and do our activities that is getting ourselves out there, getting exposure. And if they're not doing that, they're not going to make it. Because we're back to real estate and not in this crazy,
sure.
Like waitresses and waiters just right now. You want to buy it? Yeah, I'll submit it.
Yeah, submit an offer, get 20 others.
Yeah,
have to try again.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and sort of just going piggybacking off of that, and this is sort of towards those experienced agents, veterans out there that are just looking, like you said, this year as a new opportunity. What would be sort of your advice to get somebody to level up this year?
I would say you got to double down. It's the advice to myself. I think if you do got to talk to people, whether it's by phone, whether it's by DM, whether it's by text, you got to connect with people. So you have to connect with people every day, and you have to give people value because you don't want to always, and that's what I'm growing and learning, is that you just don't want to find somebody, get them cold. As much as I'm the type A and I want business, offer people something, and not with something to get in return, because it'll come. Just help out people, give things to people, and double down, talk to them, get involved with business owners. But this is time to level up. And what I'm saying to myself is the same thing. This is my blessing in disguise. I might have to talk to twice as many people because a lot of people are afraid to do business. It's just the reality. Listen, the reality is, if you have a 3% loan and you want to upsize to a 7% loan, nobody's doing that. This is not going to happen.
It's going to be hard to. You're going to be able to afford half the product.
It's not going to be worth it. You have to pay $3,000 more for a little bit of a bigger house. So we have to go for first-time home buyers, and there's business out there, but there's less of it. And I believe interest rates will level down soon. Nobody could believe that interest rates can be 3%. That's really unrealistic. So once we get back into 5s and 4s, it'll be back to the market from 2018, 2019.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's a sort of a hidden nugget in what you just said in terms of talking to twice as many people in the coming year. That's a great thing, because you're going to have twice as many people in your database once it goes back down the interest rate. Like, you're going to have that much more business later on, because again, these people will see that you've been working for them, adding value for them. Yes, you're working harder in this next year, but once you cross sort of that hump that's to come, it's all going to pay dividends again. So, just doubling down on talking to people, making connections, just being in front of them, giving value. It's amazing advice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just want, just to add on to that giving of value, bringing in that humanity. We talked about all this technology and AI and stuff like that, but, like we said before, nothing can replace that human touch, right? At the end of the day, it's still a real estate market. We have to add that human touch in order for them to continue to come back to us, right? So even if it's just as simple as, actually, when we were having lunch earlier, there was a lady at the pizzeria next door, and she was like, "Oh, you have anything sweet? I want, I have a sweet tooth. Like, I want something sweet." And the pizzeria was like, "Oh no, we don't. We only have ice cream." But it was too cold for her to eat ice cream. Never too cold for ice cream for me, but she said it was too cold. I was like, "You know what? Come next door. I have some Oreos, and you can have some Oreos." So I walk in with the lady, and everybody's looking at me like, "Who? Like, who's this lady? Like, why is she coming off the street eating our Oreos?" But it's just that human touch. I didn't do it to get anything in return. It's just that giving that humanity, like making sure you're giving
Always be giving.
Always be giving, because it'll return to you just like you said.
Exactly. And it's a more satisfying business.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're helping people out. I had an instance yesterday that I really call it become friends with your clients.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a client that I followed up with, and I don't know if I wished them happy birthday or whatever it was, and they got fired for their job really unjustly. So we went to a whole conversation. At the end of the day, I said, do you want me to get you an attorney? Yeah. And I'm going to get her an attorney. Yeah. To talk to another client. Again, this is because I love my clients now.
Of course, yeah.
And if a lot of my clients, I say, just after we close, I'm still your guy. You need a plumber, call me up. You need an electrician, call me up. If you need your hardwood done or whatever. And so I'm a resource for my clients, and I want to remain that. Yeah,
you want to be that connector. You want to be the go-to person.
Yep.
You know how they say, I have a guy. You want to be the guy. You want to be the guy.
Yeah, I got to be that guy. I'm the guy.
All right, so you're talking about resources and things like that. What would you say the most valuable resource has been to you over your career? So in terms of either books you've read, podcasts, or mentors that, what do you think, if you could pinpoint something? Coaching? Yeah,
I every year I didn't coach. There's a significant difference in income than years I did coach. So I got my first coach in 2018. Didn't coach in 2019. My income dropped by 40%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then I got a coach. Just kept on getting a coach back, and my business doubled. And then you keep on gaining, and so the accountability and the changing of a coach, the coach getting to know who I am. I would never not have a coach. I think I would have more coaches in my life, and are going to for different aspects. I think the only way to level up in life is to get a coach. Michael Jordan has a coach.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'm sure he has multiple.
Yeah, exactly.
Strength training coach, the shooting coach, all these other type of coaches.
Yeah. So for me, it's coaching. Definitely coaching.
Yeah, and I think that's a common answer that you'll hear if you talk to any successful person. It's like, who do you rely on my coach?
Yeah.
Right? All the big time players, all the big CEOs, like you said, Michael Jordan as an example. There's always somebody that's supporting, because you can only see what's in front of you. Right?
Exactly.
Your coach can really take that, eagle eye view of you and your business and help, cover the parts that you can't see and help guide you. And we just got a coach this year. This is our first, I want to call real coach.
Real coach.
Our first real coach. And I don't know about you, but in terms of just the value that we're seeing, and again, it's pretty early on, but the value that we're seeing, the things that we're thinking about, and the way that we're approaching our business, I do see results happening in the months to come.
Yeah.
And again, all because it's not just us thinking about it; we have help from somebody else.
Yeah, like the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So you're going into a business trying to figure everything out, and I think we feel victim to that, right? We always in the beginning of our careers, we always wanted to just figure out things for ourselves. We're like, we're smart people, we can figure this out. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not worth figuring it out, right?
No.
So if somebody else did it, just
speed up the learning curve.
Yeah, right. Speed up that learning curve and just kind of learn as you go, but with some guidance, right? It's a lot easier to follow a track that somebody drew for you than it is for you to just make your own track and then follow it, right? So it's definitely important. We are seeing the value. Sometimes it's even just validation of what we're doing, not necessarily saying, you're not doing it right, but more like, you're going the right track, but maybe want to think about this other stuff too. Yeah. So I think that's where it's very valuable, keeps us on track, and make sure we're working on the business and not in the business. Yeah. So definitely a lot of value in the coach.
Yeah, definitely.
And an analogy I'd like to use is, if you're, say, on a big cruise ship or something, right, and you're going across the sea, you have no sort of way to really see or tell where you're going. You think you're going one way, but the slightest shift in direction, you can end up in the opposite way, right?
Yeah.
And your coach is like that compass, that sort of overseer that's telling you, okay, go just a little bit to the right and keep on going. You're still doing the work. You're still having to maintain and operate the ship.
Yeah.
So coaching is not something that you can just leave on the coach and have them figure things out for you, and it's no work. There's still a lot of work that I want to emphasize for people that are thinking about getting coaching, that are sort of going through that process. It is a lot of work that you have to commit to. Your coach is there to help guide you and be that compass to keep you in the right track to get to your goal. And that's something that at least I've seen in people that say coaching doesn't work because they think coaching is like a magic cave. Here you go. But it's, again, like a compass to keep you on track, keep you going the right direction. And as you're the example, you've seen success in it, we're seeing success in it, it works.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just going back to, like, it's also what you put into it, right? So I think we have had other coaches in the past.
Which is why I said real coach.
But we didn't put in the best foot forward ourselves. Like, we didn't buy into what they were saying. Could be because we didn't really believe it too much. Obviously, they talked about it good enough for us to buy into the coaching program, but after we were in it, maybe we didn't see the value, or maybe we didn't have the time. Whatever the case may have been, we didn't put our best foot forward. We didn't follow their teachings and guidelines. Therefore, it never worked. I don't remember getting a single value out of it, right? There's still things that we may remember here and there, but, we can't say we spent, $6,000. Because of that $6,000, we were able to make, $20,000.
Definitely.
I cannot say that about our past coach.
But to your point, it was sort of on us.
It definitely was. We definitely didn't follow through and put in our best foot forward.
And that could be a common problem. I know I've had agents that are really successful agents, but lied about their production to get an even better coach, like one of the best coaches, and they didn't do the work. And it was like they could have gotten a cheap coach, and it doesn't matter. So listen, the coach is there as accountability. Like for me, I'll give you a funny for instance, but I was coaching the other day, and I was telling them that I don't have any systems. I need to hit you, I need some systems. And I was complaining a little bit, and I was in a dark place.
We're really good there. I mean, we work in real estate. There's always a dark place.
Especially in November. So I was talking to him, and I was just explaining to him, I don't feel system-based, and I don't always focus, which is a realtor problem. Right. It's usually a personality problem with a realtor, is that we're all over the place. So I said, we don't have systems. And he just pivoted me to say, okay, he asked me a series of 10 questions and made me realize how systematic I was. And, I didn't now struggle with that problem. My mindset was different. And he looked at me and says, John, really, what's the problem? And I said, Jeff, it's interest rates.
Nice. Awesome. And with that, John, again, don't want to keep you much longer. It's been great having you.
Thank you.
Really, really great having you in the office. Hopefully we'll see you more
definitely.
Coming up. But for those people that want to connect, want to reach out to you and just have a conversation, where can they find you?
John Buoninfante on Instagram. My website's John. I got this for $10. I don't know how I did it. John New York Realtor.
Nice.
If I was you guys are going daddy right now. So if I could get John, you guys can get me. So John New York Realtor, Jay Buoninfante, living in Westchester County with John Buoninfante on YouTube. And that's it. Just you really could Google my name, and a lot of platforms come up. So
awesome. And we'll have all of that in the show notes for people, so that we'll link to it all. And now anybody that wants to connect, check the show notes. And awesome.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Thanks, Felix. All right.
Thanks for listening to the Selling Empire Podcast. Want more of the best real estate tips, tricks, secrets, and insights to level up your game? Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. While you're at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review. And we will see you back here next time for the next episode of The Selling Empire.